We all heard of the legend of the people who danced until they died in France. This sounds like a small, minor, little fun urban legend. But it is a true story. And today's episode of Weird Stuff, we will be looking into that true story of the people who died in France while they're dancing. Because it might just sound fun, but there are some very weird connotations to it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into this story of the dancing plague, we do need to talk about the events and the place leading up to this epidemic of dancing, I suppose. Our story begins in the 1500s in the Alsace region of the Holy Roman Empire. The Alsace region now is a part of France, and it all occurred in the city of Strasbourg. Strasbourg was in a dark place, is probably the best term to put it, because 100 years earlier the Black Death ripped through Europe and ripped through the city of Strasbourg, and it was still feeling the effects of that pandemic to that point. And another problem with Strasbourg, that had a very problematic clergy. A lot of the monks and priests decided to dabble into vices, alcohol and violence. So a monk from a nearby neighbouring city decided to investigate. After finding a cellar full of barley wine in a church, a monk actually threatened to murder him. But since Strasbourg was not going to get any better, because anxiety was a very big thing in the city at the time due to multiple crop failures, the Black Death, and a new disease that was terrorising the people of Strasbourg called the English Sweat. The outbreak of English Sweat in Strasbourg started in the summer of 1517. It would normally take 14 to 16 days of intense sweating before you pass away from it. This is another thing that was really causing anxiety in Strasbourg, but things would get worse. It was only a year later, in 1518, another crop failure happened, which would cause another famine in the city. But hallucinations was causing an issue in Strasbourg as well, due to all this anxiety, mental strain, hunger, and just generally living in a poor environment due to the poverty then. People started hallucinating and seeing the dead walking on the streets. Many of these hallucinations saw dead family members or soldiers walking with their severed limbs in their hands as they died on the battlefield. Some only died a couple of months before these hallucinations started. So life in Strasbourg was hard, and it would get stranger as we go on because the dancing plague occurs. The day was July the 13th, 1518, and a local woman named Frau Troffer walked into the streets dazed, confused, and just stumbling everywhere. One local was really concerned and actually went up to Frau to ask her if she was okay and does she need any assistance and help. But Frau looked at this person and decided to twist, swirl and shake. Frau started to dance, but people didn't see it as like the ominous thing that it would become, due to Frau just maybe being high spirits. So this put a lot of people into high spirits. They started laughing and encouraging her to carry on dancing, because in the area which had been ravaged by anxiety and disaster, thought this is a big thing to like brighten up their day. Frau was going for 6 hours before anyone said anything. She did collapse onto the ground and pass out, but every time she would get back up and basically carry on dancing, and that's when people started to worry. It took about a week until people did notice that more people were dancing, and the local authorities in Strasbourg were a bit concerned from that point, because a woman who's been dancing for 6 days straight and every time she passes out and miraculously gets back up to dance isn't concerning enough. But Frau Troffer had to basically, her trance needed to be broke, and being the olden days, religion came into it, because many thought that this would be the wrath of God, but many people actually pointed the finger to Saint Vitus, who was a patron saint of epilepsy. With Saint Vitus, he can basically be the cure of epilepsy or the giver of epilepsy. And many thought Frau has wronged him in a way, so he gave her epilepsy, which caused her to dance. So the local authorities took Frau up to the cave where there is a shrine of Saint Vitus in hopes that it would cure her. But when they were taken up there, apparently they removed her shoes and found out her shoes were covered in blood from, you know, constantly stomping your feet and doing the jiggle walk wherever. But many doesn't know that Frau's fate, so that has lost the records. She could have been cured, or she could have just died from exhaustion. But many more people, and it was becoming an epidemic in Strasbourg, was dancing. Local magistrates decided to look for doctors in or nearby Strasbourg to diagnose what was going on. Some doctors came up with a theory that it was something called hot blood, which is basically explained that the blood is overheating and causing the mind to dance, which is causing the person to dance. Weird theory. But the doctors was getting fed up of the magistrates were getting fed up of the doctors' lack of basically help. So the magistrates decided this is mental, decided to take their own matters into hands. Because why not encourage them to dance more is a solution. Oh my god, I can't believe this. So basically, they built stages in the market space where the old medieval market would be held, and put these people on there to carry on dancing, basically on a form of display. And they would pay and encourage people who were inflicted with this dancing plague to dance with them, and every time they would pass out, pick them up off the ground and just get them to dance more. Oh my god. And if you didn't think that wasn't more insane, it does get more insane, because they would hire bands and play upbeat music to keep these people dancing. And I can't believe that they thought this was a solution, because it does get darker, because for some reason they think that encouraging people to dance more when the issue is a lot of people dancing, people were dying. A merchant was driving through the village on a constant basis, and he said that every time he was cutting through, he was seeing about 15 people die a day from this dancing plague. And the magistrates were like, well, this isn't working. So they had to come up with a new theory of trying to figure out what is wrong with this. With 200 people infected with this, they decided to basically order them home, ban all music to be played. But this didn't combat your dad dancing in the living room issue. It just got worse from there as well, because more people were hallucinating and dancing. So they had to go to a different route of combating this. Maybe St. Vitus is the answer. So the villagers gathered up all 200 or so infected people and started taking them to St. Vitus's shrine. While at the shrine, they were told to put on red shoes for some reason and donate a penny to St. Vitus. Then they all gathered into a circle and en masse prayed for penance. And surprisingly, this worked. So all 200 people were snapped out of their trance and were taken home. But that was the end of it for the hardship of Strasbourg. Before we get into what may have caused the dancing plague, I'm just going to run through what is left of Strasbourg's history. Because Strasbourg would fall to the French after the French would invade that Alsace and Lorraine region of the Holy Roman Empire in the 1600s. It would stay like that until the Franco-Prussian War, after Prussia would eventually would form into Germany. Basically, in peace agreements with the French and Napoleon III did claim the region of Alsace-Lorraine. France did retrieve it back after the First World War in the Treaty of Versailles, but then it would be invaded by Nazi Germany in the fall of France and retreat back to the Germans. But after World War II, it would return to France, and which it remains today. Just to warn you before I carry on, I am going to read a lot of things off my phone because there's a lot of scientific things. It's really hard to read the script, remember, and just try and say it with muscle memory, because I'm quite good with muscle memory and I can tell stories from reading a paragraph in gaps of clips, then doing it in my head, rewording it, but still is accurate as possible from my research. So I'm just going to carry on with this now. At the time, people did blame God and St. Vitus, but science did advance since the 1500s, and many theories did come out. John Waller, a medical historian, believes that they all suffered from a mass psychogenic disorder. Such outbreaks do happen and do take place under circumstances of genuine stress and anxiety. And this is based on the fears of the locals. 16th century Strasbourg was obviously, like I said, full of stress and fear. The Holy Roman Empire and Central Europe was full of fatal diseases such as smallpox, the aforementioned English sweat, and syphilis. Wallace stated these small factors made the locals believe that this was the wrath of St. Vitus or demonic possession. These people convinced themselves that life was terrible and the end was near. Just the same, people's mental health was non-existent. No support was given to these people, and you can see how they could have easily broken down. Basically, now we're just gonna talk about what cured them, because it's just simple, no remedies, nothing. It was just the love and care they were given. Obviously, some things were questionable, to say the least, by the authorities, but taking them to St. Vitus, looking after them, make sure that they were fed, make sure they didn't die was the simple thing, was the cure for them. It was an era full of stress and anxiety, but the love they were given, the religious love they were given, because they were very religious people at the time, cured them. So that's the end of the dancing plague for people. And life in Strasbourg did eventually improve. All the tragedies that did happen following this has been and gone. But the big question is, can this happen again? And the simple answer is to end the video on is yes, you can. It might be rare, but it clearly can happen again. Thank you for watching the video today, guys. This is another episode of Weird Stuff. I'm tossing between two scripts for the next one. It might not be a Weird Stuff the next video. I am going away very soon, so it will be a video while I'm away actually I'm going to be doing. So if you do like this channel, guys, please give it a subscribe, turn on the notification bell for more weird stuff, more exploring videos, more true crime cases, hiking videos, documentaries. Like I said, I've got the Aberfan documentary coming out soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. You can actually turn on the notifications for that on the channel. So I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.